Hello and good morning to everybody. Uh, this is Paint with Mesma, my weekly interaction with people from my painting studio. You see a wall behind me where I'm currently doing some work. And today I decided I'm not going to be painting live with you because this month I am dedicating my sessions to the LGBTQ artists, especially from India, who have inspired me, my work, and who have been trailblazers in their fields, especially from a social point of view. And of course, artistically, they have contributed a whole lot, particularly painters who have come forth and have created a wave of change in India. And, they have contributed in their own way to the liberation movement, particularly in India, because the LGBTQ movements are different in India than they are in the West, particularly in the US, which is where I live. So, Paint with Mesma is my weekly session where I open up my studio and I talk to viewers, to my friends, and people who want to know about my work, who are interested in learning about it, my process, my techniques, my inspirations, and my creative sources. So, because June is International Pride Month, I thought it would be appropriate to dedicate Paint with Mesma this month for to the LGBTQ artists. And today's artist is someone who is a very special person. He has been the one of the most influential artists in India, and who was the first, I think, openly gay man in the mid 20th century. Now, he was born in 1934. I'm talking about um, Mr. Bhupen Khakkar. Bhupen Khakkar is a modernist painter, and he came into prominence during a time when India was trying to create an identity on the international scene, especially after independence, after the progressive arts um, uh, formation of the progressive arts group by M.F. Hussain and Raza and Gade and Souza and such artists. I don't want to get into the art history part of it, but um, Mr. Kakkar lived during that time. And he was, because I'm not an art historian, I don't know the details of people's lives. But I will be reading today from some of his biographical content online, because I want to be accurate in terms of telling you about who this person was. So I'm just going to dive in and we are going to learn a little bit about Mr. Khakkar, and I will leave the links in the description box for you to go and look at some of his paintings. Because live session, it's hard for me to show his works. I can't edit. These videos are not edited. I'm speaking extempore. So, a lot of it is on the spot. And I don't have a repository of his images to show you. But I'm just going to go through some of his life experiences and then elaborate on some of the facts that I find very interesting, and I hope that you will too. Within his career and thereafter, Bhupen Khakkar has received the most international and highly regarded institutional attention by any Indian artist. He was the first artist of Indian origin to be selected for the Documenta Ninth in the Kassel back in 1992, and has been exhibited at illustrious venues across the world, including the Tate Modern, London, the Centre Pompidou in Paris, the National Gallery of Modern Art in New Delhi, and the Museo Nacional Centre de Arte Reina Sofia, Madrid. Excuse me for my Spanish pronunciation. It's not very good, as you can tell. Now, a selection of works from the estate of Bhupen Khakkar. Okay, never mind all this detail. Um, Born in 1934 into a middle class Gujarati family, Khakkar first trained as a chartered accountant in Bombay, which is now Mumbai. So trained as a chartered accountant as a CA. He moved to Baroda, which is in Gujarat, a place in Gujarat. The MS University, the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, is a great institution for fine art. I've been there, and the all I remember is the beautiful banyan trees there. I hope they are still there. Anyway, sorry, he moved to Baroda in 1962, where he chose a new career path as a writer and an artist, liberating himself from family pressures. I'm sure that at that time, pressures on men were immense to make a living. They still are, but we're talking about a time when gender roles were even more set in stone than they are today. So this is a radical move by Mr. Khakkar to really take on a profession uh, that does not guarantee financial security. Largely self-taught, Khakkar was encouraged by his friend Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh to join the Faculty of Fine Arts at Baroda. I think they mean at the MS University Baroda. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Khakkar had been uninspired by his time at the famous JJ School of Art in Bombay. Now, Bhupen Khakkar is not the only artist who was uninspired by the academic style of painting at the JJ School of Art at that time. The There was a new wave of awareness in India at that time where artists wanted to create a very distinct identity through their work. And they thought that they had a responsibility to serve the country in its image making, to break free from the colonial ties that imposed certain academic rules on how art should be made and how one ought to consider an ideal image or the academic studies. And so, at the school, they would have to, for example, copy Greek sculptures. They had to copy Roman busts. And so this is a very typical salon, European salon, academic salon, atelier, not salon, but the atelier type of training that they went through. And Indian artists rejected that. They said, no, we have our own idiom in art, and that we want to explore our own indigenous idioms and images. So the paintings of the Bengal school, for example, you see a huge influence of the Ajanta cave paintings and the Sigiriya cave paintings, which is now in Sri Lanka. But so they and Jamini Roy went to the folk art. So there were a whole lot of artists who were trying to uh, imagine a whole new world, and I think that's really significant and beautiful and liberating. So he was a part of that movement. By contrast, Baroda's Faculty of Fine Arts was a breath of fresh air for the artist. It was new, it was contemporary, and it was in this atmosphere of free thought that Khakkar thrived. Not surprising. In 1976, through a cultural exchange program, Khakkar made his first trip abroad. He traveled to the USSR, Yugoslavia, Italy, and the UK. In the UK, Khakkar stayed with his mentor and close friend, the British artist Sir Howard Hodgkin, whom he had met at the Second Triennale of India in 1972. In an interview of Khakkar's state retrospective of in 2016, Hodgkin reminisced, "During my visit in India, I went to see the art critic," and I'm quoting Hodgkin here. "During my visit in India, I went to see the art critic and curator Geeta Kapoor, who I know slightly. She asked me what I thought of the exhibition. I told her I thought it was all rubbish, except for three pictures. She said, 'That's very interesting. The painter who did them is standing right here.' That was how I met Bhupen." So I think what he's saying is that in the exhibition, he only liked three paintings which were painted by Mr. Bhupen Khakkar. Now, in 1979, he returned to the UK, this time as an artist in residence at the Bath Academy of Art. Khakkar lived with Hodgkin again, this time for 6 months, teaching at Bath once a week. This time in the UK was transformative for him. In England in the 1970s, he bore witness to the increasing acceptance of homosexuality, which had been legalized the decade before. We're talking about the UK, by the way. Moreover, being exposed to and interacting with artists such as Hodgkin and David Hockney gave him the much needed freedom for which he had yearned. Now, I must say that very few artists in India got the opportunity to go abroad and explore in this way. So he was particularly lucky to have the freedom and the uh, and the resources which were awarded to him for his on the basis of his merit. He wasn't an independently wealthy person. It wasn't a self-funded trip, but he was lucky that he got to go to a place where homosexuality was not a crime, not a punishable crime at that time, and that he found artists who were free to express themselves. And I must make a comment here about Mr. David Hockney, who has inspired not only Mr. Bhupen Khakkar, but also Mr. Atul Dodia in India, who's a quite noteworthy artist, painter. And the pop art movement in the 70s must have been burgeoning and must have influenced a lot more artists. But I know that Bhupen Khakkar was used to admire Mr. David Hockney quite a bit. And I love, I've watched a lot of David Hockney's videos and his talking and his whole approach to art. And he is a very endearing person, I think. And he has liberated himself from all kinds of expectations of the society and the art world and whatnot. He just does what he wants to do, and which is what artists ought to do. And I find that very refreshing. I find that extremely inspiring also. So, and his whole, you might have seen some of his paintings, the famous swimming pool paintings in LA, because he's originally from Yorkshire, I think, and that he moved to LA because he liked the sunshine. He wanted to be in the bright sunshine with all the bright colors and away from the murky skies of Yorkshire. So that was Mr. David Hockney, and he had influenced Mr. Bhupen Khakkar I'm sure, not only in his art, but also in terms of being open and free about his own sexuality and sexual preference. So, this period also coincided with the death of his mother in 1980. So, Mr. Khakkar's mother died in 1980, which allowed him a new freedom. Together, these aspects facilitated what has been termed as his coming out of the closet. He declared his homosexuality, something which he had only hinted at before. This was to become the hallmark of the next phase of his art in his artistic production, an autobiographical chapter that made him the first Indian artist to freely disclose his sexual orientation through his work. Now, it's easy for me to read this and to tell you that this is what happened and what not. But one must remember that at a time, I bet this is the early 80s, and the world was a different place then. And for an Indian artist to have the courage in that time to come out in this way when there was nobody else around him who was in a similar position. This must have required tremendous courage and tremendous fearlessness and determination to live life on one's own terms, to not be bogged down by societal convention of expectations of people, and to liberate yourself in that way always reflects in one's work, especially if you are an artist. I can't say about other professions, but if you are a professional artist, this will change your work. This will create the sunshine from within, so to speak, and the rays will start to emanate out from you, and you become a powerful person, not because you are physically you become strong, but you become a powerful force to reckon with. And then tread you lead the path. You don't tread it, you lead the path for others to follow. So in this way, artists like Mr. Bhupen Khakkar uh, are more than artists. They are agents of socio-political change in a society. And I respect him tremendously for that. His personal style of painting has not influenced me. I'm not a pop artist, if you probably can tell from my work. I'm not a I'm not trying to create political work either, but just his his approach in a time and space where he was, his approach to his work and his outlook of the world, and his defining his place in that world on his own terms is what makes him so influential and so powerful and so inspiring, like I've said before. So that is why I wanted to include Mr. Bhupen Khakkar in today's session of Paint with Mesma. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be back for the next session, not next Saturday, but hopefully the following Saturday. We shall see, because I'm traveling for the next few weeks, and it depends on where I am and the availability of a laptop and technology and internet connection and whatnot. But I'm going to keep today's session short because I was planning to get back to my easel as quickly as possible. So today's session, I'm sorry, I did not feel like painting on camera, because the camera is kind of an voyeur in the studio, and you feel the gaze of the camera on your back when you're painting. And sometimes I just want to be alone in my studio working. And today is one of those days. So my tribute to artists like Mr. Bhupen Khakkar. I'm sure there are many out there about whom I don't know. So if you know of them, please put a comment in the comment box below, and I will be adding some of the resources where you can go and check out Mr. Bhupen Khakkar's work. Please let me know if there are any artists you would like me to cover in this series, and I would love to talk about them to you. And this is Paint with Mesma weekly, Saturday weeklies. I like to start my weekends with you all. And happy Pride to everybody who's celebrating, to all the allies of LGBTQ people. Thank you for your support and for your spirit, because that is highly, highly important. And and a big flying kiss to all my friends who are marching in the parades this month. I wish I could be there with you all, but I will be thinking of you. And until next time, have a colorful, colorful pride. Thank you all.